It is December 3, and I'm going to talk a little bit about flashing and mounting outside outlet boxes. So instead of waiting until my siding is on, I actually mount these boxes externally. I mount them first. So in fact, the diagram that I have right here, the horizontal line, will represent where my siding lap is going to go. So that way, when I actually have to cut the siding, I already know that I can cut a U-shape piece of siding on the underside, and on top I'll just cut up, over, and down, and it's real easy. I don't have to cut a hole in the middle of a piece of siding. So on the back side, this is probably the important part. I really don't believe in just connecting on one side. What I end up doing is there are two screws here and here that actually are screwed in from the box. I put a 1.5 inch thick block. Actually, I just cut down a 2x, make it 1.25 inches thick. And then screw a plate on the back side, and that gives me the depth that I need on the front side, so that when I put on my siding, I've got about another 1/8 of an inch sticking out. So that is a good, solid connection to the wall. The issues that I've seen in the past, most houses just have a simple side mounting bracket, and when you push hard to try to get your plug in, eventually that wears out and it wobbles. It drives me crazy, so this is a good solution to that. Secondly, and this is what we're gonna talk about today, is house wrap and keeping out the ants. So I take it a little bit further than most, and that is because I have a little campaign, no ants in the house or in my building. So what I do in this regard, I used to do something different, is I put caulk underneath the mud sill, and I realized I don't really need to do that. What I do instead is, when I put my sheathing on, the very first thing I do is, this is clear, but I use a silicone caulk between the wood and between the wood and the concrete. And then secondly, on top, there are little voids. I actually put 4 inches of primer in, because I want good conduction. I want a really good stick, really good adhesion between the flashing that I'm going to put on the bottom and the wood. So primer, its job is to make the surface very easy to apply something else to. So I go ahead and I apply, like I said, 4 inches wide of primer, and that's step 2. Step 3 is to use some type of bituathene product. In this case, it's Vicor, made by Grace. This is some sticky stuff. As long as it's, I don't know, 60 or 70. When I put this on, it was a little on the cool side, so I actually had to put it next to the fireplace to let it warm up. So here's another one of these boxes. Step 3 is going to be putting on the actual Tyvek. So this has been Tyvek'd, and effectively, I roll the Tyvek out. I hang it about 1.5 inches lower than the trusses or rafters, about 1.5 inches lower, so that I can get a piece of tape, or I can get this Moist Stop Easy Seal on it. We'll talk about that in a minute. So first, the Tyvek goes on. If you look closely, you'll actually see, actually very difficult over here, I started with a brand new snap line, and it actually was a little messy. But you can see I snap every line where the studs are behind the Tyvek, so that way when I actually nail my siding, I know where the studs are, and it's easy for me. I'm not a real big fan of just putting nails into plywood. That's substandard work, but that's very simple. That's very similar to what most people are doing anyway, people that put on siding. So the Tyvek goes on just with a couple staples on top. I only staple a couple staples on top to get a nice straight line, and as long as we've got a nice straight line all the way across, everything will hang down nice and neat. Then I snap my lines, and I feather with my hand. I effectively push the Tyvek down and staple from the top down all the way across down to the bottom. I don't worry about the windows. The windows are not installed yet. In fact, nothing, no wood, no flashing goes onto the opening for the window until the Tyvek is up. So Tyvek goes on, and then at the very top, I'll go ahead and I'll put Moist Stop Easy Seal. Now that is a 6-inch wide product. and the top 3 inches is extremely sticky, but it takes 2 people to put this on, just like the 9-foot Tyvek that was applied. But it goes on really quickly. Of course, there's just a little backing that you have to peel off, and it does an excellent job of sticking to that 1.5 inches that's left. And since it's 3 inches wide, it also sticks to the Tyvek. So as long as the Tyvek is up against the wood, it goes on quite nicely. So as soon as that's done, then I'll go ahead and, if you look, there is Tyvek tape used to attach the Moist Stop Easy Seal back to the Tyvek Housewrap. And that pretty much does a good job of sealing the top. Same for the bottom. Now that we have this flashing that we put on the bottom, I go ahead and I put a piece of Tyvek at the bottom as well. Now, I've read mixed feelings about putting Tyvek tape against the flashing that's at the bottom, and that is, if water gets behind the building, there isn't any way for it to get out. And the building department called me on it one time, and I said, well, here's the deal. If I get water behind the wall, I have a bigger problem. So I will address that if that actually really happens, but I haven't had to worry about it. So anyway, cutting the openings, quite easy. Just feel the recesses, cut it with a knife, it makes a nice clean opening. So, and I guess as you see, I can cover flashing of the windows at a later date. I have my first 3 installed. Everything is actually flashed the way that it needs to. You start at the bottom, work your way up just like shingles, and here is the view of the first 2 walls and first 3 windows that I have. And again, this is what it looks like before I put on the Tyvek. This is going to be the next step. Is again, you can see the flashing at the bottom. I need to flash the bottom of here, put the Tyvek on, and then cut the openings for the window and door. Put the Moist Stop Easy Seal on top. Tyvek tape the top, Tyvek tape the bottom, and anyway, that's it.